Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be sharing with you how I made this deep neckline corset with a Basque waistline. So if you haven't seen the drafting video, I'm going to leave the link at the description box, or you can go down to my channel. So let's start. So here are my patterns. I've gone ahead to cut it out and I added ½ inch round, and I added ½ inch also this part, and I didn't add at the zipper side. Then going down to the neckline, I added at this part and around this part at the lower part also. So coming down to the front pattern, I added ½ inch for joining allowance at this part, and I also added half at the lower part and for joining it. And my front is in 2 pieces, so I cut out joining allowance round and also at my cup area. So for the yoke, I'm going to be cutting this while we are going to sew the dress. So now is to join my pattern. First, I'm going to be opening the first part, which is the side of this pattern. So you're not meant to join this side, but while sewing I mistakenly joined it, but I'm still going to cut it open. So you're not meant to join that part, the first side. So next is to join the side to the center piece. And whatever you're doing on your material, you're going to do it on the lining of the dress also. So after joining, this is what I have. Next thing you're going to do is to join the cup part of your dress. So I'm going to place my cup accordingly. This is the first part of my cup, and I'm going to unpin it. So I'm going to open it this way, and I'm going to place one at each side. So this is the cup at the center of the corset. So the one number 2 is the one for the side. So just like I opened the main fabric, I'm going to open the lining piece. And for my lining piece, I've gone ahead to iron gum stay to it, and also I cut out wording for the cup also. So if you're making use of already made cup, you're just going to join your material first. So I'm going to take the second one this way, and I'm going to open it and place it for each side just like this. After opening it, I'm still going to open the lining part of it, and also I will place it just the same way I did. But before I do that, I'm going to place my cup, my wording underneath the material. So you're going to iron this wording on your fabric, or you can go ahead and add stay before ironing the wording on your fabric. So this is the lining part also, and I'm going to keep it this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch round my cup, stitch round my fabric, or you can go ahead to iron it first. So after stitching it down, I'm going to join it this way. So just the same way I did for the fabric, I'm going to do so on the lining piece also. So I've gone ahead to join my cup, and I cut open the center that I joined before. So just like I said, you're not meant to join the center, it was a mistake. So next thing I'm going to do is to create boning channel on my piece, but I'm not going to join the center yet. I will do that later. So this is a fabric that I cut out to create the boning channel. It is about 1.5 inch. The width is 1.5 inch. So I'm just going to use the length of where my fabric stop. First, I'm going to sew with ½ inch, then flip it over and top stitch with ½ inch. So I'm also going to do that here. I'm going to sew with ½ inch, flip it to the other side and sew with ½ inch. So I'll create as many boning channel as I want. So I created 4 first. So I'll be doing the center later. That will be after joining my dress. So next is to join your cup. To join your cup, I'm going to find the center of where I joined these two together. After that, I'm going to get the center of the cup, and I'm going to join all the way. So if you're using an already made cup, at this point you're going to attach your cup to your fabric. So I'm just going to pin what I have to the end. So while joining your cup, you will notice that it is very easy to join your cup this way. So I'll continue pinning my cup till I get to the end. After pinning it down, what I'm going to do next is to sew with 1/2 inch, and whatever I do on my main fabric, I'm going to do on my lining. And this is what I have, 2 separate pieces, both for my lining and my main fabric. And the next thing I'll be doing is to attach my yoke. At the lower part of my yoke, I added 1/2 inch. At the shoulder, I added 1/2 inch, and at the neckline, I added 0.3. So wherever I have my dart right now, I'm just going to notch it. So why I'm doing this is for the dart on the yoke to match the dart or the joining on the bra cup. So after doing this, I'll go ahead to unpin my yoke part, and I'm going to place it for joining to the main fabric. So at that part I notched, I'll make sure it touches the joining on my cup this way, so that my pattern is going to align. I'll also do that for the other part of my cup. So what I'm going to do now is to flip it this way, and I'm going to pin it down, starting from that point that I notched. So I'm gradually going to pin it down to the end. So after pinning it, this is what I have at this part, and I'm going to sew with 1/2 inch. And when pinning, please make sure your yoke stops where your cup stopped, because that's where your yoke actually started from. So what I'm going to do right now is to go over to the machine, and I'll stitch it with 1/2 inch right at the top. So after stitching for this side, I'm going to go over to stitch for this other side also. So I'm going to place the notch part also at the joining at the cup. Then after doing that, I'm just going to go ahead to pin it round, just like I did for the other part of the cup. So after pinning, this is what I have for this part, and I'll also go ahead to sew it. I'm going to pin to the end, then I'll go ahead to sew this on the sewing machine. So after sewing, I'm just going to flip it to the wrong side, and I'm going to take the lining piece and place it on it this way. So next, I will be stitching the lining to the main fabric. So to do that, I'm going to flip it this way, and I'm going to start from my cup stopped. And while pinning, I'm going to make sure the joining part on the cup side aligns with the lining part, and I'm going to stitch it down with 1/2 inch. So whatever I do to this part, I'm also going to do it to the other parts of my dress. So after sewing, this is what I have, and I'm going to flip it to this part. As you can see, I've sewed it down, and I'm going to flip it down, and this is what I have at the both sides. So the next step we're going to take after now is to join the front part together. So we're not going to join the lining first, only the fabric. So I'm just going to hold it down this way, the main fabric, and I'm going to start stitching from where my cup stopped, and I'm going to stitch it down with 1/2 inch going down. So after stitching down, this is what I have for the front. Then we are going to join the lining parts later. So next thing I'm going to do is to create a boning channel on this main fabric. So to do that, I'm just going to flip this open this way, and I'm still going to get my fabric that I cut out, which is about 1.5 inch for the width, and the length is the total length of the basque I have. So at the top, I'm just going to fold it in with 1/2 inch. So after folding it with 1/2 inch, I'm going to place it at the center of my dress, and I'm going to sew with 1/2 inch right down. So after sewing with 1/2 inch right down, I'm going to flip it to the other side, making sure that center that I folded with 1/2 is in place, and I'm still going to fold it with 1/2 inch. After folding it with 1/2 inch, I'll go ahead to top stitch on the other side of the boning casing. to make sure it sits very well on the fabric this way. I'll still go ahead to top stitch on top so that I'll make sure the boning does not flip out from that part. So after sewing, then I'll go ahead to join my lining part with 1/2 inch. So I'm done attaching the boning, and this is the lining part. I've stitched it down with 1/2 inch, and this is what I have at this part. So as you can see, it's looking very neat and clean, and you go ahead to notch the side. After doing that, you're going to place the sides together and stitch with 1/2 inch at both sides. After stitching with 1/2 inch, you're going to flip it and then iron it to make sure it sits very well. So this is what I have right now. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my boning and I'm going to be passing my boning right through it. So this is my boning, and to pass it through, I'm going to cut it out on top first, or you can wrap it with your sellotape to avoid poking the person. So while attaching it, I'm going to make sure it doesn't get to the end. I'm just going to leave about 1/2 inch at the lower part. So I'm going to continue this process to I pass boning to all the boning channels that I have created. So going back to the back pattern, I added 1/2 inch for joining allowance and at the upper and at the lower part also. And then going over to the neckline, I added 1/2 inch round. So next thing we're going to do is to join the side to the center. So whatever I do on my main fabric, I'm also going to do it on the lining. So first of all, I'm going to get the main fabric, the side part, and I'm going to place it on one side, and I'm going to get the other side for the center, and I'm going to place it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch it up with 1/2 inch. So just like I said, I'm going to stitch it up with 1/2 inch at this side. So I'll also repeat the same for the lining part of the dress. After stitching it, I'm going to get the pattern for the upper part and I'm going to unpin it. So I'm going to turn it round with the lining. So to turn it round, I'm going to stitch with 1/2 inch on it. I'm going to stitch with 1/2 inch on this part and this part, and also I'll leave the shoulder and the armhole area open. So after sewing, I'm just going to notch it round. So this is what I have after I'm done sewing it. I'm just going to notch it round so that it's going to relax. So while doing this, I also added a loop at the back of the neckline. Then I'll go ahead to open it to the right side, and this is what I have after turning it to the right side. So after this, what I'm going to do is to join it to the lower parts of the back pattern. So at the joining at the back, I'm just going to sew it down with 1/2 inch, and I'll be passing my boning for the back at that point. So if you want, you can create more boning channels for your back. So after sewing that for your back, what you're going to do is to flip it to the right side, and you're going to place the upper part of your yoke for the back this way, and you're going to place it on that joining. That is where your yoke is going to start. So you're going to just take it and pin it on your lining this way. Then you're going to pin it down. After pinning it down, you're going to go ahead and sew it round. So I'll go over to the machine and do this. So I'm done sewing, and I have for the two backs, and so this is what the back looks like. So sorry for the noise at the background. So let's keep sewing. So to join my upper part and the lower part, I'm going to join it with 1/2 inch. So I went ahead to join for the both side. Then going over to my skirt, sorry, I had a video where I turned up my skirt, but I lost that part of the video. So to do this, you're just going to notch the middle of your skirt, and you're going to place it, open it this way, and you're going to take the upper part of your dress and after doing that, you're just going to draw a line at the middle. Make sure it's the center, and you're going to place it this way, and make sure this part is touching the ending part of the skirt. So what you're going to do is either mark where it's going to stop, or you're just going to give it a little notch by the side, so that you know that that's where your skirt will be ending after joining it. So from there, what I'm going to do next is to take my chalk, and I'm going to draw out the shape I have at the waistline. So after drawing it out, what you're going to do is you're going to cut it out. You're going to cut out the shape you have at that part with your scissors. So after cutting it out, what you're going to do next is to take your skirt, and you're going to join it this way. So you're going to place this at this point, and you're going to sew it half, and then flip it to this side and sew it half. So this is what I have after sewing, and I'm going to place the back side on it. So what I'm trying to do now is to mark where I'll put my zipper. So from the joining at the waistline, you're going to measure 10 inches, and you're going to mark. From that 10 inches mark you made, you're just going to stitch it up down to sew that side to create a slit for your skirt. So I'm just going to be sewing with 1 inch at that point. So after sewing that, I'm just going to add zipper to the dress. So before I do that, I'm going to join my shoulder, and to join the shoulder line of my dress, I'm going to take the back part and place the front on it this way. Then after doing that, I'll go ahead to open up the lining of the back piece. With the lining, I'm going to wrap it around the lace for the front this way. Then I'll place the back on its back, and I will sew with 1/2 inch. Another way of doing this is just placing whatever you have here and just stitching it up with 1/2 inch. So whatever method you want to use, just go ahead to join your shoulder, and I did that, and I also attached my zip. And the next thing we are going to do right now is to measure round to attach the turtleneck for the dress. So I'm just going to measure whatever I have on my neck right now. So after measuring it out, you're going to cut whatever you have. So I have about 18 inches, and I added 1 inch more, and then the width is about 3 inches. On fold, I have 1.5. So you're either going to place it and sew on it and then top stitch it, or you're just going to place it directly on your neckline and just join it with 1/2 inch round. So I'm just going to place it and join it with 1/2 inch round. So after I'm done joining it, this is what I have, and I went ahead to create a loop at the back of the dress. So I also cut out the sleeve for this. So I had little memory remaining on my phone, so I just had to cut it off the camera. So after cutting my sleeve, I'm going to notch the center, and I'm going to join it with 1/2 inch. So after joining it, we are going over to shape it. So at the under bust, I'm going to place my tape there. I'm going to place my under bust measurement, shoulder to under bust line. I'll still place my tape at that my under bust, and I'm going to get my nipple, shoulder to nipple point, or shoulder to bust. Then I'll mark it. From that my under bust line still, I'm going to mark my waistline. So if you notice, my waistline is on this line, accurately on this line where I joined my skirt pattern. So from there, I'm just going to measure about 7 inches to get my hip. So if you're a much taller person, you can go ahead and mark 8 inches. So right now at my bust point, I'm going to insert my bust circumference. At the under bust, I'll insert under bust circumference. At the waist, I'll insert my waist circumference. At the hip, I will do the same. Then coming down to my pattern, if you want your skirt to be fitted, you mark 2 inches. But if you want something that is not too tight on the body, you can go ahead and mark 1.5 inches. So from that 1.5 inches mark, you're going to connect all your measurements together. So after doing that, I'll go ahead and shape.
So with this, we have come to the end of the tutorial. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also turn on the notification button to get new updates from my channel whenever I post.